hello and welcome to Pluribus Unum's Fireside Chats. Not as good as FDR's, but hey, it's something. Now, this episode is gonna be... I don't know exactly how I'll title the episode. I know exactly how I'll title it. I don't know if I'll intentionally title things a certain way so that certain people see this video or not. But either way, that's irrelevant. With that out of the way, let's get right into the news. First, it's like very sad news coming from Uruguay, where the former president, Jose Pepe Mujica, was recently diagnosed with esophageal cancer. Why must the good die so young? He's only been here for 88 years. 88 more! And, things like him getting esophageal cancer isn't necessarily that surprising because there's a very famous video of him talking to someone after Uruguay legalized marijuana, and then the guy's like, "Hey, yo, Mr. President, can I smoke weed with you?" And he's just like, no, I don't smoke weed, I smoke cigars. And it's like, yikes. But there are a couple of things that we need to understand, because I need to be a bit more realistic than a lot of other people, because a lot of people on, especially left-wing Latin American leaders have been trying to, say, very positive things about Pepe Mujica, saying, oh, yeah, Pepe Mujica is this amazing leader, I hope he pulls through, but it's like, guys, he's an 88-year-old man with esophageal cancer, and, as he stated, he also has an autoimmune disease, which makes his condition worse. Pepe is gonna die. He's going to die soon, and it's really bad because Pepe Mujica is honestly one of, if not the best leaders in the modern day. He was one of the best country, presidents in the modern day. Literally. If you don't know anything about Pepe Mujica, let me give a brief explanation about him. He was a former guerrilla fighter, and then he became the president of Uruguay. He led a group called the Frente Amplio. I'll be talking about their election later in the year, I think. But in fact, actually, Uruguay is actually the nation that kind of created the term "the pink tide," because when Hugo Chavez won his election, it was considered a left-wing leader got elected. But then when the president before Pepe Mujica, Tabre Vazquez, when he was elected, they said, well, what is going on in his nation isn't necessarily the same as Chavez. It's not a red tide, it's more of a pink one. That's basically what they said. And Pepe Mujica is actually well known for a lot of other things. For starters, despite the fact that he was a really old man when he got elected president, he became well known for his very far left social views. He legalized same-sex marriage, he legalized marijuana, he prioritized women's rights. He did a lot of really socially progressive things, as opposed to what some people would think that someone of his, ilk would do. And one thing that made Pepe Mujica, a step beyond even many pink tide leaders, was the fact that he had a very huge reputation for basically walking the walk, in a sense. You know how a lot of people, sometimes criticize socialists for living in well-off houses. They live in, basically the bourgeois socialist, or, what's the champagne socialist, that's the term. Well, Pepe Mujica was basically quite the opposite, being well known during his tenure as the world's poorest president. He was very well known for not dressing very appropriately for a president. You could look at pictures of Pepe Mujica during his presidency. He was the aesthetic that Bernie Sanders had during his 2016 run, and I guess in his 2020 run, where it's he's this old disheveled man, he's got a messy hair and all that stuff. Yeah, that's basically what Pepe Mujica did, but he did it even worse, because he barely dressed up nicely. One of the big things was very big, he refused to wear a necktie, because it's who cares? It's a useless rag. This is nothing to me. He literally showed up to a UN meeting wearing, slides and shorts. The dude literally just didn't dress like a politician at all. He's what Fetterman was trying to do, but, actually mean it. Pepe Mujica also lived in a very shitty house because that was the house that he normally lived in. He didn't like move to the fancy mansion that was given to him. He was also known for driving a really shitty car, to the point where like it only became famous because of him, to the point where someone literally offered to pay him like $3 million or something like that for the car. And it's just like, no, that's nothing. This car is not worth $3 million. You only say it's worth $3 million because you wanted the aesthetic of this, but no. And the biggest thing that showed that he was really willing to walk the walk was in regards to the presidential salary. You see, the presidential salary that Pepe Mujica would have gotten during his 5-year administration would be $720,000. A pretty big chunk of change, not gonna lie. Well, Pepe Mujica made it a point to give away 90% of his salary. He gave away $648,000 and only received $72,000. It's still a hefty. It's still a big chunk of change. Yes, we gotta acknowledge it. It's still a big chunk of change, but like, he literally, that's amazing. Just the fact that he would do. Even a lot of pink tie leaders, like, I can't think of any other pink tie leaders that have done that, and that's why Pepe Mujica is such a G. Which is unfortunate that he is going to die soon. Very unfortunate. But hey, he lived a good life, and he's ready to accept when it goes. Speaking of accepting things, we need to accept the fact that Israel is disgusting and evil. Like, yeah, I think we all know that by now, but like, yeah. Okay, so a lot of things have happened in regards to Israel news recently. So let's go over some of them briefly. First, Netanyahu was telling Biden, like, guys, the international court, they're floating of the idea of potentially arresting people in my administration. Biden, can you like do something to help me, please? To which I responded on our campaigns when that news article was posted with a very simple, well then, don't break international law. Sorry. Like, I mean, don't want to go to jail for like I mean, to use a thing that conservatives say every time a black person breathes, fuck around and find out. That joke was dark, but yes, apparently that is a thing. Like, just conservatives, like, literally every time a black person breathes and they get shot by police, they always say, like, oh, they're gonna fuck around and find out. It's like, okay, but here's the thing. Israel has even issued a threat stating that if the international court starts sending warrants to them, they will retaliate against Palestine. How is this different than what you're doing now? It's literally like, Biden, you need to tell them to stop us from stopping this genocide, or we'll commit a genocide. It's like, what? I think the big threat is supposed to be that they're targeting they will expand their targeting into the West Bank, which is just like, very weird how just objectively evil Israel keeps being. This is why I literally cannot understand. If you are one, like, I recently posted a poll, like, not that long ago, like, hey, a bunch of new faces here. Why, like, you're pro-Israel? Like, genuinely, if you're watching this video and you're pro-Israel, genuinely, in the most genuine sense, comment down below and tell me why. Because I genuinely cannot fathom why anybody would remotely be on the side of Israel at all during this conflict. I, in the most genuine sense, cannot see why you would be in favor of it unless you just hate Arabs. That's genuinely the only thing I can think of, because the side that you advocate for keeps just objectively doing bad things. They just keep getting more and more cartoonishly evil. Why do you still turn around and then go, yeah, these guys are the ones with the moral high ground? And another thing that has shown how bad things have gotten and how very transparently evil that Israel and Israel supporters are is the recent protests that have been going on. I don't think I covered like the beginning of the story, but like there was apparently like a couple of prominent schools that have ties to Israel, and a couple of them even decided to like shut down valedictorians or prominent students from giving speeches that would be pro-Palestine. Like I think there was one prominent school, I forget which one, but like that at first they just pulled the plug on one of the valedictorian from giving a speech because they were afraid that she was going to say a pro-Palestine thing. And then, after backlash, they decided to make it so that none of the students would be able to go to graduation because they knew that at the end of the day, what would happen is that each of the students, when they got their diplomas, would say pro-Palestine things. And now, we have gotten to the point where there is now protests going on in these schools to protest against the Israeli apartheid and and want them to cut ties with Israel. And of course, what ended up happening is police were called, and a lot of pro-Israel protesters were also sent in, and they're basically just doing really bad things. I mean, even though I'm off Twitter, I still occasionally glance on Twitter to see what's up. And I've been seeing some videos where a bunch of pro-Israel counter-protesters were literally walking up to a black woman going, ooh, 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 ooh. And it's I wonder why people accuse the pro-Israel side of being racist. And then there's one where there's this old woman who was on the pro-Palestinian side, and then she was trying to make sure that the barricade that was keeping the two sides from conflicting with each other breaking. And then a bunch of pro-Israel people literally tried to grab her and pull her in. And then they're literally you wouldn't stand a chance, old lady. It's again, genuinely, I do not understand why people would be pro-Israel. I genuinely do not grasp this. A lot of prominent Democratic politicians and a lot of prominent people in the news gave speeches or gave news things trying to BS the people these are not peaceful protests but they are. They're all the clashes have been started by police and by the pro-Israel people who have been doing things. There's videos of people on the pro-Israel side that literally scream anti-Semitic things and then try to get the pro-Palestinian side in trouble. And one of the things that I think has truly been showing a very good thing, this is, I would have not covered this because a lot of other big people have been covering this, but the reason why I wanted to cover this in particular is because one thing has been very abundantly clear with this set of protests. Because one of the things that have been going on is that many people have been comparing these protests, these student protests, to protests in regards to the Vietnam War and civil rights movements. And many prominent liberal people, online or otherwise, have been very much wagging their fingers at the pro-Palestinian protests that have been going on right now. And when leftists try to compare these protests to the previous protests, many prominent liberals actually have just unironically been denouncing those two previous protests. I'm not kidding. I've seen people literally say they've been pointing out hey, look, this is exactly comparable to the Vietnam War protests. And then liberals go oh yeah, and then what happened next? Nixon won. Looks like those Vietnam War protests were pretty bad after all. And it's wow. I can't believe we now live in a world where now apparently people have literally flipped around to now being pro-Vietnam War. What? This has been a historical consensus for a long period of time that the Vietnam War was the worst thing that happened in American foreign policy for a long period of time. And now all of a sudden we flipped it oh no, now the people who were advocating from day one that we shouldn't be involved in this conflict, that were proven right, were actually wrong the whole time. And by extension, they're literally denouncing the civil rights movement. In the most genuine sense, genuinely. They're saying oh, these people are being forced by Russia or China or blah, blah, blah. They're they're trying to make this woke mind virus or whatever. That's what people have been saying. And that's literally what was said about the civil rights movement. They claimed that Martin Luther King Jr. was a communist influencer, that he was secretly using, trying to push Bolshevik propaganda in the United States. There's literally signs where they literally say race mixing is communism. Martin Luther King Jr. was denounced as quote-unquote violent, but now he's regarded as the good kind of protest. And that's the same thing. They keep also trying to one thing that's been going on is that a lot of people literally are trying to... It's the same thing with genuinely, I think I'll just make a fucking liberal video, liberalism podcast, because genuinely, I don't think I can really not talk about it anymore. I've tried to give liberals a benefit of the doubt and tried to hold off on this topic until after the election so that it wouldn't be misconstrued as me denouncing Joe Biden. Even though, I'm only pro Joe Biden in the sense that I just don't want Trump to get another term. That's basically it. Otherwise, I don't really care about him in any other sense. But, genuinely, I was just... Because, literally, it's the same thing. The activism of yesteryear was good. Martin Luther King Jr. was good. But anything that happens now is bad, even though the things that happen now are literally the things that happened then. Literally, beat for beat, what they said about the Vietnam War protesters and the civil rights protesters, literally everything that they said about them is being said now. And I genuinely cannot fathom how people are just too stupid to not see this. But the fact of the matter is, I don't think they're stupid. I think they're just intentionally lying to you. And here's another fact that is a hard pill to swallow. Even if you wanted to blame the Vietnam War protests and the civil rights protests for, the ensuing administration, a simple solution to prevent those things from coinciding would have been to nominate a candidate that appealed to those people. The reason why people who were supportive of Eugene McCarthy were not so likely to turn out in the general election was because Hubert Humphrey wasn't against the war in Vietnam. He was pro-war. And that's why he sucked, and that's why he failed. And at the same token, it's Biden should try to learn from the mistakes of the past and try to fix anything that's going on that is even remotely comparable to things in the past. And you also need to understand that one of the problems was... the fact of the matter is, you gotta be very truthful in their sense, because the Vietnam War protesters weren't even necessarily the 100% reason why the thing happened. Because if you want to be technical, and I know liberals don't like to say this because they don't want to say this out loud, but they will say it. But they say it implicitly, and it's the fact that they're again trying to denounce the civil rights movement, because the Civil Rights Act had more of an impact in that election than fucking the Vietnam War protesters. The civil rights movement had more of an impact because that's what compelled George Wallace to run in the general election and then effectively split the Democratic vote that could have potentially led to Nixon doing better. And I doubt anybody who is even remotely on the Democratic side of the aisle is going to say, well, maybe they were a little too hasty on civil rights and blah, blah, blah. No, they're not going to say that. Because at the end of the day, we understood that the civil rights movement was the right thing to do, and it didn't matter if there was political blowback to do the right thing. And that's the same thing with this. Political blowback doesn't matter because we're doing the right thing. The right thing is more important than fucking number. And it's the bad thing that Democrats have said over and over and over again. They have this mindset, and then they just continue with this mindset, even though it just doesn't work. I was going to talk about other stories, but this news story has kind of left me in a rambly state. But in case anybody needs to piece it together, I am pro these protests. These protests are good, and you should be also pro these protests. So let's move on to the main topic of this video. You recognize that little circle in the thumbnail, and that is the logo of the website Wikipedia. Wikipedia is a website that we all have heard of at one point or another. It's an online encyclopedia that is the 7th largest website online. Founded in the year 2001, it has gotten a hefty amount of criticism, leading to an adage that we have all heard before: Wikipedia isn't a good or reliable source. If you've been at school since the site's foundation, your teacher has probably made their distaste of the website known, and there are quite a number of people who continue to shit on Wikipedia, and people who use it outside of just generic use for tidbits. I mean, it's just very common to, for a lot of people to just shit on Wikipedia. Anybody who uses Wikipedia or is caught using Wikipedia is just people don't necessarily look too kindly at the site Wikipedia itself. But should people be that harsh of Wikipedia? That's right, I've made my stance known. I am going to be one of the people who actually defends Wikipedia. Every time you go online, all you see is people shitting on Wikipedia. But I ran the poll. More people think it's a reliable source than it's not. The silent majority shall rise up. Wikipedia is a reliable source. And this podcast is essentially going to be used to basically refute a lot of the common criticisms that I hear from Wikipedia haters. But not just like inherently shitting on them, but rather kind of like just bringing them to the attention, bringing the reasons why I don't think these criticisms are good, or bringing up reasons why I think those criticisms are valid, but can be improved upon. And the first thing I want to immediately do is reject one big thing. I have heard a ton of people try to make the claim that Wikipedia has a left-wing or liberal bias. And I just want to completely, unequivocally just be like, nope, 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 no. Just no. Just flat out no. You're wrong. L plus ratio. Most of the people who are on the right make this claim, but they are also just stupid. Because they're the same people who think that, like, I mean, no way can you honestly take these people seriously, then point out the fact that they created a website that was specifically made to counter Wikipedia, like counter Wikipedia's left-wing bias or liberal bias, and show the truth. And their website that they made, Conservapedia, is literally just chock full of misinformation. When a conservative says Wikipedia has a liberal bias, what they're actually saying is Wikipedia has a reality bias. That's always what conservatives say when they mean a liberal bias. They literally just mean, oh, they accept reality for what it is. They get mad that Wikipedia's articles on climate change include actual information from climate scientists, as opposed to just saying, nope, fake and gay made up by the Chinese. They're mad that the Wikipedia page about the sexual abuse that is done in the Catholic Church isn't, no, this doesn't happen and don't look into it. They get mad that there's a section of the Donald Trump page that mentions his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. They get mad that misinformation is not on Wikipedia. That's why they get mad. And they get mad that Wikipedia isn't editorialized for the right. That's always what conservatives mean when they ever try to claim anything has a liberal bias. What they mean is, this thing shows real information and not fake bullshit. But not only people on the far right, or just the general right, all the right is the far right, not only do those people hate Wikipedia and claim it has a liberal bias, but there are also many people on the far left who claim that Wikipedia has a liberal bias because Wikipedia isn't too kind to their favorite regimes. Basically, Wikipedia has things like pages on the Uyghur genocide, or Wikipedia has pages on the Holodomor, or has negative things regarding their favorite socialist leaders, or an alleged Western bias, which is true to an extent, but that's like a little bit of a different topic. Now, the reason why I don't necessarily, because it seems like they're trying to imply that Wikipedia itself is like trying to push people away from being like socialist, or like being like pro-West, like all that stuff, but it's like, that's not true, because I've read a ton of Wikipedia articles and like came to positive conclusions about many socialist leaders. Like, I mean, if I hadn't read the Che Guevara Wikipedia page, I would have genuinely still thought Che Guevara was a bad person. Same goes for Hugo Chavez, because I learned information about their life, what they did, what they, like, philosophy was. Like, I learned about that stuff. They also have things and sections that criticize them for things that they've done. Whether I accept those criticisms is one thing or another, but what Wikipedia does is they present the information, and you can walk away with your own conclusions. One thing that I really want to do is, like, I literally looked up, like, in Twitter, just looked up, quote, unquote, Wikipedia is an unreliable source, or Wikipedia is not a reliable source, and just wanted to see some of the things that people actually said. Most of the time, they usually just said it and then didn't really provide anything else. But one thing that I found very interesting was, like, when I was scrolling through them, one of the things that a lot of people who were on the left wing, who were critical of Wikipedia, were talking about, was the fact that Wikipedia has a page and talks about something called Havana Syndrome. For those who do not know, Havana Syndrome was when a bunch of US officials in Cuba started feeling sick in 2017, and they blamed the symptoms on Cuba, claiming that they had a secret sonic weapon that was giving them some sort of illness, which had been dubbed Havana Syndrome. And at the time, basically, whether or not you believed in Havana Syndrome was basically a partisan issue. If you liked Cuba, or were sympathetic to Cuba, or were anti-West, you were like, Havana Syndrome is stupid and bullshit, it's nothing. But if you were a pro-West guy and you hated Cuba, you were like, Havana Syndrome is a very serious thing, and we need to stop Cuba from doing more Havana Syndrome. Then, in 2022, scientists actually did a research on Havana Syndrome and concluded that the most likely culprit of Havana Syndrome was mass hysteria. That people thought that they were going to get hurt by Cuba when they went to Cuba because of the Western propaganda against Cuba. So then their brains conditioned them into having symptoms of an illness, but that there wasn't anything remotely connecting Cuba or anybody else to an illness to them. And like a lot of tankies and people like that point out like, oh, since Wikipedia has a page about Havana Syndrome and like talked about Havana Syndrome and like blah blah blah, like since they had a page on Havana Syndrome and actually took it seriously, then that's proof that we can't take the site seriously. But that's not really true to an extent. Like, yes, they had a page on Havana Syndrome, but I actually went through a lot of the old pages of Havana Syndrome, and really, nothing in those pages remotely really seemed that bad. I mean, like, the pages that were, like, the most recent before the 2022 finding was when they were basically presented both sides. Which, like, a lot of people, some people say that this is true, and some people say this is false. In fact, if you go to the Havana Syndrome page, like, and go to the earliest page, a lot of it is actually heavily critical of Havana Syndrome, stating, like, basically being a lot more on the side of, like, this seems like it's not real, and it seems a lot more likely that this is mass hysteria. Because there were a lot of sources, literally, that were just like, yeah, is this mass hysteria or not? And it seems that the sources at the time really seemed to point to mass hysteria, and then it wasn't until, like, intelligence agencies started trying to take it a little bit more seriously that they started taking it a little bit more seriously. But, again, like, it presented both sides of the argument, and it said there wasn't a definitive conclusion on the answer. So yeah, I don't think Wikipedia has a political bias at all. I don't think it does. The only thing I could even slightly say might be a political bias is the fact that Wikipedia is anti-authoritarian. And that's because Wikipedia has a history of somewhat anti-authoritarian messaging. Such as the case when the SOPA bill came out, where they were heavily critical of SOPA and PIPA, and even shut down their website in protest in order to make sure that free information and free speech could be spread around the world. But that issue was very much a multi-partisan issue. We had people on the left and right who were pro and anti-PIPA. I mean, one of the people who was the forefathers of the PIPA and SOPA bill was John Conyers, and one of the leading opponents was Ron Wyden and Bernie Sanders, and then there was also Ron Paul who opposed it, and then there were also a bunch of, like, mainstream conservatives that supported it. Like, it was literally just a multi-partisan issue. Basically, if you just hated authority, or you were anti-copyright, then you were in favor of, like, you were opposed to SOPA and PIPA. Being anti-SOPA and PIPA was basically the right decision. Like, it's a similar thing with net neutrality. It's like, online, basically everybody online supports net neutrality, except for, like, super partisan people who hate net neutrality because of, like, some political viewpoint in other sense. But let's move on to a different criticism of Wikipedia. In fact, I think we should just skip all the other things and just move on to, like, the biggest critique of Wikipedia. A criticism that everybody has heard. It is basically drilled in to your understanding of Wikipedia. And that is the fact that anyone can edit Wikipedia. Anybody can edit the pages and change whatever information they see fit. And they'll be published on the page. And in the past, that has led to a little bit of a problem here and there. One of the most prominent examples that got Wikipedia in the most trouble, like one of the first incidents that made people start to think Wikipedia wasn't that good of a source, was in 2005, when an article written about writer John Siegthandler was posted to Wikipedia. And this was back in the day when Wikipedia pages were very, very small. They were essentially like a very quick blurb biography of who the person was. And here's all the page said about John. John Siegthandler Sr. was the assistant to Attorney General Robert Kennedy in the early 1960s. For a brief time, he was thought to have been directly involved in the Kennedy assassinations of both John and his brother Bobby, but neither was definitively proven. And it didn't take until September of that year that the article would be deleted. By that time, the article's information, quote unquote, had already spread to many other websites, to the point where I think he was going to sue Wikipedia for this information, but it didn't end up panning out, I don't think. In 2008, the page of a creature called the coati was edited by a student in Brazil who gave the animal, like, basically, you know how, like, on the Wikipedia page, it'll be like, this animal, blah, 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 also known as blah and blah. So, they gave the animal a nickname, the Brazilian aardvark. That name was never, ever a colloquial name of this creature. And this edit would remain for 6 years, where the information had been spread massively to the point where it's just like, at this point, the nickname is probably valid at this point because people have read the Wikipedia article and probably saw the creature. There was a controversy back in 2004 regarding Polish Wikipedia issue regarding the famed communist revolutionary Henryk Batut. Henryk Batut, that page incident was just so tragic. Mainly the fact that the page existed at all, because Henryk Batut does not exist at all, remotely. But here's the thing, like, I was looking through a bunch of these, like, incidents, like, in this capacity, and I'm like, I started noticing a pattern. A lot of these really big incidents that have things such as this, like massive pieces of misinformation that spread on wikis, all come from pages that are over 10 years. Like, these incidents happened over 10 years ago. Wikipedia is a vastly different website than it was 10 years ago. Like, again, like, literally, look at some of the pages. Literally look at some of the oldest pages on the Wikipedia, and then scroll to the beginning page and scroll to the most recent page. They look vastly different. Take their 69th page, Alaska. It's 4 paragraphs long, and one of the sentences, I shid you not, was, on the other hand, it's cold like Russia. It's like, that's not information. That's editorial. Like, back in the day, Wikipedia used to editorialize a lot. And now, that doesn't exist anymore. There is so much data on the Alaska Wikipedia page now about Alaskan culture, about Alaskan cuisine, like, about everything regarding Alaska. And also links to places where you can find more information. It's just massively bigger. And one of the things that is also changed is prominence of pages. You see, back in the day, a lot of people, basically anybody could edit any page. But now, some pages have locks, like where individual page is considered too important to be reliant on random people to edit here and there. So they lock it and allow people to sort of submit the edits in a like a forum, and then you can edit the page after that fact. One example that I saw was, I couldn't find anything like definitively talking about this, but like it was basically back during the 2008 election where someone claimed that they went to the Obama Wikipedia article and that every time they hit refresh, the page would be completely vandalized. Now, Obama is locked on Wikipedia, so only certain verified users can edit his page, and you can submit things to allow you to contribute edits to the page, but you can't directly contribute editing unless you're considered a trustworthy user. Like, many of the types of, like, problems that we have in regards to editing and stuff really come from one of 3 things. 1, prominent people who try to edit their own Wikipedia pages to remove or embellish info to get a better look. Most celebrities will try to get certain not nice incidents off their page, but due to the very obvious nature of it, Wikipedia will just remove it and put it back. Like, there was a basketball celebrity that, like, abused his wife, and then he tried to, like, edit that off of his Wikipedia page, and then that was immediately brought back on, and I think they locked his page because of it. And a more prominent example in the online space is the user Jackson Hinkle, whose Wikipedia page is essentially permanently locked because he sends his political cult to keep vandalizing his page to change things. Like when they say like, "Oh, I'm not far right. Edit that part out of the page, please." And it's like, well, too late. Your page is edited, gone now. I even helped contribute to the page as well. Not to get involved in any of the edit war nonsense, but just because right around the time Jackson Hinkle's girlfriend dumped him, like his mail order bride, like just left him. So it's like, okay. The second thing is faulty information that is not Wikipedia's fault. Like, basically, it's just information just hasn't caught up to the modern day. And that's the sad truth. Like, sometimes we just don't have the right information yet. And sometimes we just need to find more information later on the line. Such is the case in February of 2012, when a historian named Timothy Messer-Cruz was going over the Haymarket affair, and then he started looking through some things, and then he found out, oh, one of the big aspects of the Haymarket affair was just completely wrong. Every single news media was reporting something wrong, and now that I have this new primary source, I'm going to go edit the Wikipedia page of the Haymarket affair to change the information to be more accurate. But then, due to Wikipedia's editing style, they wouldn't allow him to do it because he had a primary source. And he didn't really mind that much because he was also taking the information that he already had and writing a book on the affair and was going to publish that book. And he was like, when I publish this book, I will then take this book and then put it back and then try to change that page again. But he was denied because it was his book. So it was like, this is a little bit tricky. I don't know if that issue got resolved. Hopefully it did. But that is a criticism of Wikipedia that I can kind of understand. Like, I understand to an extent why using primary sources might not necessarily be the best in every single capacity, but there should be some cases where it is allowed. Like, for example, like let's say a candidate dropped out, and then I include the tweet of theirs that says they dropped out. Shouldn't that be allowed? Shouldn't that make sense? But no, they're a lot more likely to entrust a website, like a news site, that publicly says that this candidate dropped out. Even though both of the things say the same information, I mean, I don't really know necessarily that part. That would probably just be a thing. Like, but again, it's not necessarily Wikipedia's fault to a degree, but I would, like, this is the one criticism that I can kind of understand. That's all I have to say. That's the one criticism I can kind of understand. Okay. And the last thing that leads into problems is basically things that have little to do with information, but purely aesthetics. Like, it's very common for flags on Wikipedia to be partially inaccurate. The colors, like, usually what happens is the colors are usually off. Usually because they follow flag rules to a T, but the problem is, the flag rules for a printed flag look vastly different than the flag rules for a digital flag, so it usually just means that the colors just seem off. If you go to the Flag of India page and click the file of the picture in the info box, you'll notice that there are actually two flags there. The older one used was brighter, but the newer one that's used is darker. I think it's just because, like, in actual print, the darker flag is what would actually be used. But lighter print has been used in a lot of digital sources, probably for similar reasons. Another aesthetic problem came from the 2-month-long edit war regarding the page of Star Trek Into Darkness. You want to know what the war was about? They didn't know if the letter I in the word into should be capitalized. Yeah, that's a very, not really worth arguing there, buddy. And a newer thing is, like, attributing modern political stuff to old parties. Like, we're used to having political parties have logos, colors that are universal and noticeable. Like, nowadays, blue is Democrats, red is Republicans, green is Green Party, gold is Libertarian. Like, we want, like, a specific, like, that easy. But things just aren't quite, like, that's not necessarily how things are. it's old in the olden days. Like, it just wasn't like that. Like, I mean, very early on, like, literally the only distinguishing factor for, like, the British Whigs and Tories were literally just, like, one had a blue flag, one had a tan flag, like a buff flag. Like, it really wasn't that deep. For America, there's the issue regarding the Democratic Republicans page versus the Federalist page. Like, even though, like, here's, like, you know, when you go to those pages, you see those two little, like, circle lapel things. I don't know specifically what they are. I know what they're supposed to be. I think you hang them on like a debate stage or something like that, like on a podium. The problem is I don't know where they got those those colors and like how that was from. I don't know where I don't think they mention them on the pages. They probably do, and I just haven't found it. But I don't know where they got those from, and why did those get to be the symbols of the Democratic Republicans and the Federalists. And another thing that understands why things are not necessarily like clear, it's because of the Democratic Republicans page itself. Technically, the Democratic Republicans isn't called the Democratic Republicans. That's always been confusing to me because I always saw that. But like basically, I reread it again just recently, just because I was bored, and it was like why do we call them the Democratic Republicans? And it's literally just because at the time they called themselves the Republicans, but that would imply that they had a connection to the Republican Party when they have a direct link to the Democratic Party. So we call them the Democratic Republicans. Like literally, we just call them that for some reason. I don't know why we didn't call them like something like simpler, because like they've been called a lot of things that just aren't Democratic Republicans. But regardless, again, that's sort of like a contributing of like modern political parties. They have to have a specific name, a specific term that we referred them to. But that's not how it worked. Back in the day, it literally was just like, they were just like vague political groups. And one example that you might be familiar with, if you've seen this video, I will try to link it, but it was a video about the long-standing Wikipedia edit war regarding the French elections. The video is by a user called Najrance, or you might have seen it from the Link of Sunshine thread, but basically the TLDR was people were fighting over how to define political parties in the late 1800s and early 1900s of France. Some wanted to go by very explicit party definitions, while others wanted to go by informal alliances based on votes the parties took and the following legislature. It leads to, the problem with that was that they would lead to vastly different numbers depending on how you analyzed it. And sometimes people would just accidentally like make it so the numbers didn't quite add up. But like some of the, like, it just seemed like they just kept trying to like make things a little bit more complicated, like, because it made it look better. They wanted to make it aesthetically look better, but the problem was it just didn't really fit. It also didn't help that apparently like there was like some of the people were elected under joint lists, so it's like how do you define them? And I guess that's kind of where people kind of like assume like, okay, so if this party and this party elected some people on a joint list, then that means that these two had an informal alliance that we could triangulate to make sure that blah, 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 like all that stuff. Which didn't help by the fact that it was very informal over how you analyzed like French politics. It was really very vague in how you did it. You had a vague ideological stance of the person you were voting for, but otherwise you didn't really know fully in and out what they stood for. Which got a lot of complicated because, again, we don't live in that world. We live in a world where Democrats are this, Republicans are this, Greens are this, Socialists are this. Like, we want things to be clear, cut, and dry. And also because people want to make colorful political maps. And yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. Because I've seen a ton of political maps on a lot of different like countries, like election sites, and it's just like, this isn't important at all. This really is irrelevant. Like, we don't need a map. This map is nothing, because unlike the Electoral College, it doesn't matter. It's just a map. Now, what's funny is that stuff like that, all those criticisms of like anybody can edit Wikipedia, like those are criticisms that a lot of people make. But then a lot of the times they also make this criticism that Wikipedia is actually a small user base in charge of a lot of information. And we shouldn't trust it because of that. First of all, it's just like, which is it? Is it too many people are editing it, or are too little people editing it? Like, what? But one of the most common examples that I hear is one of the ones that is always cited is Steve Pruitt, the man who has been dubbed by the media as the man who is behind 1/3 of Wikipedia, as proof that the site is very rigid and formulaic, only appealing to a subsection of the population who can have a lot of limited knowledge in a lot of things, gender, race, politics, etc. Basically, a lot of people boiling it down to fat, white, liberal nerd who knows way too much about a lot of things in the West, but knows nothing about, like, worldwide affairs. One joke that has been made in my Discord server was the fact that they are a little bit mad at Wikipedia about the fact that the page for the Star Wars character Admiral Akbar is way more in depth than a lot of pages on the capitals of African nations. And this criticism is also a little valid as well. Wikipedia has 47,266,583 users, but only 123,674 do a lot of the work. That's a very huge contrast. Although, to be fair, I don't think that number factors in the people who don't have an active Wikipedia account. But let's just say that doesn't really change much. Like, let's be fair. Like, that probably doesn't change much anyways. But this is one of the things that is weird. It's like, yes, I understand this problem, but how is this different from, like, any other field? Like, there's a limited amount of people who are in every single field. How is, like, a limited amount of people editing Wikipedia articles, how is that different? Like, I mean, let's take this. Historians. According to teachinghistory.org, there are only 30,000 historians active in the United States. First of all, significantly less than people who edit Wikipedia articles. But, like, does that mean that we should, like, just go, no, we can't trust historians because there aren't that many of them? It's like, no, that's not really, what? There's a small amount of people who are in charge of this massive amount of information. Very interesting. It's like, that doesn't really, I don't think it changes much. What matters is the information valid, and is the information, like, yeah, that's basically it. Is the information valid? And that's really how it would be with Wikipedia, too. I don't care if there's literally one guy who's editing the entirety of Wikipedia. Like, is the information right? Is the big problem. Like, I mean, we trust historians to make, like, history books and stuff. Like, I mean, how do we know that they're telling the truth? Why does Wikipedia feel a little different? Like, why? Why is it like, oh, when Wikipedia users do it, we have to immediately distrust them. But when a historian does it and writes in a book, then we can trust them wholeheartedly. Now, I'm saying that we should scrutinize a lot of information. That's a fact. We should scrutinize information on Wikipedia. We should scrutinize information in history books. We should scrutinize information that we think is wrong. And briefly, I'm going to defend Steve's honor. Like, because a lot of people, like, use Steve and, like, mock him and, like, all this stuff. It's like, he's not really worth it. Why are you mocking him? First of all, the whole thing about, like, he edits 1/3 of Wikipedia, like he is responsible for 1/3 of Wikipedia, it borders on a misnomer territory. Like, he's only made 33,000 pages on Wikipedia, which, if we're doing the math, accounts for exactly 0.0484204444% of Wikipedia. And Steve has actively tried to combat biases that Wikipedia has, particularly the gender bias, so it's an issue that he's actively trying to fix. But here's a section that I think will be a lot more salient, because this is one that I've been waiting to put in a video form for a while now, and now it has finally come. And it is the section where I talk about the thing that is trying to start a new wave of Wikipedia hate. J.J. McAuliffe, more particularly his video about why he hates Wikipedia. I first saw this video back when I used to be a JJ fan, and I couldn't even finish it because his arguments were just so stupid that I genuinely could not continue it. Then, JJ ended up getting Wikipedia trending on Twitter, so I then decided to watch it. Actually try to watch it full. Then I made a brief Twitter thread explaining why he was stupid and wrong. Now, I rewatched it for this video, and it got worse over time. And I can go bit by bit as to why. And when I most recently watched it, I left a comment under the video basically saying, wow, I cannot understand how fucking bad this video is. Oh my god. And then a person replied to the comment saying yeah, how dare JJ say that we shouldn't trust Wikipedia because of its falsy information. To which I responded to them actually using some points I'm going to make here, but pointing out the fact that this I want to say up front because it's just genuinely perplexing. I was very heavily expecting JJ's video to go over why Wikipedia was faulty because of the information it presented. And then he never makes that point. I was shocked that he did not make that point, that Wikipedia had wrong information on it. I was genuinely surprised. I was waiting for that to happen. Or even making the argument that it could lead to false information because of the way it does, but he never makes that argument at all. All of his arguments are so fucking weird and vapid that it's just so weird that people just watched this video and then unironically took him seriously. Now, the first thing I found funny about the video was that very early on in the video, he proudly states that he never consults Wikipedia. He's like, I made it a point that I've never used Wikipedia ever in my history as a YouTuber. Ignoring the fact that in the video he actually says he does use it a couple times. Shh. But the funny thing is, when I saw that the third time, I'm like, huh, that makes total sense considering you keep getting information wrong all the time. I made a whole video about why he knows nothing about the United States political party system, and because when he said if America had a 10-party system, they would have a Latino party, despite the fact that Latinos are not a united voting bloc, even going so far as to say that the United Latino Voting Bloc would be an illegal immigrant party. Very interesting, that just seems really weird to have, oh yeah, in a country where illegal immigrants can't vote and can't run for office and can't take office, for some reason, there would be an illegal immigrant party where a bunch of illegal immigrants would run and win elections, apparently. That's very weird. He mentions how a Catholic party would be prominent in the United States, even though he acknowledges in the video that the Catholic population isn't enough to make a viable political party. Makes it a huge point to exclude the Libertarian Party, despite the fact that it is the one party that just makes the most sense to have as an alternative party in the United States. He made a whole video about how the Canadian left loves the monarchy, then goes on to talk about how the Canadians' left-wing party, the NDP, is the most critical of the crown, then makes an explicit point that a prominent newspaper in Canada called the Globe and Mail is a center-left newspaper, despite the fact that literally every single source I have seen says that it is a center-right newspaper. Quite literally, when I responded to JJ in the comment section talking about that, he just, I point out the objective truth of what they've done. They've endorsed liberals 3 times over their entire history of being a newspaper, and all 3 times they supported the liberals, was because they just didn't want the conservatives. It's not because they didn't like the conservatives, it's just because they didn't think the conservatives were ready at those particular times. And again, I literally went to multiple sources. I went to sites that analyzed partisan and political biases of these papers, and sure enough, a lot of them said that it was center-right. But JJ says no, it's not center-right. You don't understand how newspaper endorsements work. And actually, I only heard people say that it's center-left, which is weird, because again, I've never seen any source that says it's center-left. Only sources that say it's center-right. And these sources literally talk about the fact that it used to be hard right, and then it became center right. And then he also made a video about the Israel-Palestine conflict, where he keeps mentioning the fact that anti-Semitism is a, quote, left-wing issue, and then literally 1 week later, a bunch of right-wing figures literally just came out saying that they hated Jews, and sure enough, I just found it interesting that JJ literally just proved himself wrong immediately. But that's beside the point. Basically, my point is, JJ gets information wrong all the time, so maybe he shouldn't use that as a way to be like, oh yes, see, I'm so better than people by not using Wikipedia. I'm so much better, and I'm smarter than everybody else. It's like, really? Really? Come on. Now, one of the things I found interesting was the fact that a lot of his sources, or like a lot of his like sentiment for his Wikipedia hate boner was Matthew White. Like, basically, he's like he keeps citing Matthew White, like Matthew White. Like, he just talks about him relentlessly in the video. Because basically, Matthew White hosted a website back in 2006 that was very much like, oh, we hate Wikipedia. Which very much has a lot of the issues that Wikipedia was facing in 2006. Again, like, long ago. Like, this is stuff long in the past. But again, he's judging it up like, yep, this is the reason why I hate Wikipedia. Because of things that I researched back in 2006 that I haven't, gone back and looked at. He didn't, say, oh yeah, I'm going to look back at this site now and see if any of these criticisms hold truth. He just says, oh yeah, there's this guy called Matthew White. He made a website, and it hates Wikipedia. And that's where I got a lot of my anti-Wikipedia stuff from. And it doesn't elaborate. And also, one thing I found interesting was the fact that JJ called Matthew White a historian, which piqued my interest. I was like, okay, maybe there's some valid points that he wants to make. So then I looked up Matthew White historian. It didn't turn up any results. So then I went to look up Matthew White's specific websites, like his anti-Wikipedia websites. Then I went to his credentials. I wanted to see, okay, what's his historical credentials? And I didn't find anything. And that's when I found the blurb on the website that basically just point blank says, my academic credentials are pretty slim, a couple years of college, and that's about it. I'm not a university professor or anything like that, and I currently earn my living as a library. Which I found odd because JJ explicitly calls him a historian. And historian is defined as a student or writer of history. Which, well, not explicitly saying it, heavily implies that you need to have a degree or some form of education in history. Now, I know there's some people who would probably go oh yeah, but a historian, a lot of people say that people everybody's a scientist, everybody's a historian, everybody's a blah blah blah. But I kind of find it odd that JJ kind of ignored, didn't mention it all, oh yeah, this guy, by the way, he doesn't have any degree. When you say historian, you kind of imply something bigger or better. Now, I'm not saying just because he's not a historian, he's not a student of history, that means that his information should not be taken at heart. It's that would be a huge pot calling the kettle black. I mean, yeah. But I just find it a little bit weird. Maybe he should have included a line that said a something that indicated oh yeah, he's not he's not a quote unquote historian, but maybe it's oh, he's an amateur historian, or he's an internet historian, or he's a fan of history, something like that. I don't necessarily describe myself as a historian per se. Insert the many times where I probably did call myself a historian, but yeah, I mean in the most genuine sense, just something to indicate this person is not necessarily 100% a historian. Again, it's just this is probably just semantics, yeah, but it just seems weird, kind of information to leave out, especially when you're trying to build up Matthew White is this figure that we need to take very seriously. He needs to be taken seriously because he's a historian, but he's just a guy like you or me. Why is his opinion automatically more valid than someone who uses Wikipedia? And that's another thing. JJ just really hates people who fucking use Wikipedia. He just hates them. I mean it in the most genuine sense. When he holds Matthew White to this high standard, people who use Wikipedia or edit Wikipedia or anything like Wikipedia, they are held to an immediate low standard. He cites a story in his video where he was listening to a podcast about Universal Monsters for research for a video that he was going to be making on Universal Monsters. And they were reading off Wikipedia for information regarding the Universal Monster films. And literally the second JJ found out that they were using Wikipedia to get their information, he just completely changed his perspective on these people. He says that when he first saw them and first listened to them, he saw them as amateur experts. But then, the second he found out, oh yeah, they used Wikipedia to cite some sources here and there. Oh yeah, there are a couple of guys who know nothing about anything. It's like, okay then. Okay then. Like, what? First of all, it sounds kind of weird. Like, wait, like, what does JJ mean, like, when he was listening to the podcast to try and get information for his video? Like, and he gets mad that they that they used Wikipedia to say their information? Like what? Like, what does that mean? Did he want to listen to their podcast and then just, like, take the information that they were saying in the podcast? Now, before anybody types in, no, I'm not trying to accuse JJ of nothing, I'm pretty sure what he probably wanted was them to, like, say, like, oh, here's a book about this subject, and he probably would have, like, tried to find it or something, or, like, use the information that they say from the book in his episode, but, like, that just seems very weird. Like, does that seem odd? Like, right? Like, if he's going to shit on people who use Wikipedia, like, oh, take this piece of information and then use it in this exact same way, or blah, 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 but then he wants to take the information that other researchers do, and then, but, like, that's the point of research. Like, you take the research from other people and then, like, use it for your research. That it just seems really mean-spirited when it's like, these are things that you do as well, you just don't use Wikipedia. But for what reason? Like, for what reason? The only thing that might be slightly noticeable or tangible with the criticism would be how they use the information, because he says in the video they used it in the exact same order, in the exact same thing, blah, blah, but, like, what does he mean by that? Like, when they're citing the story of the Dracula production, are they saying things in chronological order? Because how else would you say it? Would you say, oh, the film began filming at blah, 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 and then it was released, blah, 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 and then just not talk about, like, anything in between? But, I mean, I guess if they were saying that and then, like, trying to hide the fact that they were using stuff like that, or, like, trying to do that and, like, not change it enough in a tangible, different way to make it unique, such as the case with Internet Historian literally took an entire freaking article from one website and then just copied it word for word and then made it into a video and then got taken down, and then for some reason he's still walking free. But then there are other places that just literally just read Wikipedia articles for their information, and it's like, I mean, I guess if they're upfront about it, then that's fine, but if they're not upfront about it, I mean, a lot of people use Wikipedia as a research tool, especially in history YouTube, and some people just read Wikipedia word for word. Some people take the information from Wikipedia and then change it up in enough of a way that it's unique and different. Some people just take it word for word, and it depends on each individual's preference and how they present it. Because if it's a person who is taking the information from Wikipedia beat for beat and then not just acknowledging that fact, then that's bad. We had the whole, like, H-Bomber guy drama for a reason. But all this just seems really weird, because it's like, all these arguments, and it's just like, none of them actually seem to tackle Wikipedia. Like, I mean, he's just shitting on Wikipedia again. He doesn't give reasons why Wikipedia is bad. He doesn't say why Wikipedia is bad. The only things that he seems to say is that he doesn't like the fact that Wikipedia is an encyclopedia that everybody can use and has all the information right there. He prefers them to be in individual websites. Like, he prefers, like, if you want to learn about the history of pizza, instead of going to Wikipedia and then looking up their page on the history of pizza, he would rather you go to a website that details the entire history of pizza. And then, if you want to learn about different subjects, then you go to a different page, you go to a different website, while claiming these websites are better. But doesn't actually say why these websites are better. He says that they provide better information than Wikipedia, but he doesn't provide any single citation to prove the point, which would have been a good thing. Like, he keeps citing Matt White as like, oh, this guy's good, this guy's great, this guy's amazing. It's like, he could have used this as a good thing. Like, take something Matt White did research on, find out, like, oh, here's the information that he has on this subject, and here's the Wikipedia page on this subject. Here are all the faults of this Wikipedia page to explain why Matt White's site is better. But he doesn't do that. He just says, their sites are better. Ta-da! it seems like he's a lot more just like boomer. It just seems like he's just nostalgic for like 90s era internet. That's what he wants. His criticisms don't seem to be actually related to information or anything of the sort. It's just aesthetics. The only thing that's a slight criticism is something I mentioned previously. The fact that Wikipedia's writing is done by a very small amount of users. But again, is that information wrong? Wikipedia has a variety of sources they use to verify whether the information they have is right. And there are many safeguards to prevent things from being vandalized, which is a bigger problem in yesteryear, but it's not as much of a problem now. The only criticism that can be made is the fact that sometimes right information can't be used. As I said before, I cited the Haymarket Affair incident, but there is one time that I can actually say from personal experience an issue that I encountered. For those who don't remember, I did a video on the Socialist Labour Party, and I used the wiki page a couple of times to get some information. I used some other sources sometimes to get other information, but a lot of times like the pages seemed to like correlate with each other, so it's like it didn't really matter much. And then one thing that was very big on the site was the fact that the party ended in 2008. The party officially shut its doors in 2008, and then its paper, what's its paper called? I forget what the paper of the fucking SLP is called. Regardless, the paper was shut down after it briefly came back online. It was shut down in 2011, effectively closing the doors for the Socialist Labour Party. And the page reflected that fact. However, a couple months after my video was released, I go back to the Socialist Labour Party page and notice that its end date has been removed. I figure it's an accident, so I re-add it. Then it gets deleted again. I re-add it, and then it gets deleted again. And then they're like, "Hey, stop taking it off." And I'm like, "Why? Why is it being removed at all?" And it's like because there's no official end date of the party, and we need to find a source to verify whether or not the party ended. To which I'm like, wait, but you have a source in your page that literally says it ended. It says right here, the party closed its doors in 2008. You cite it right here. That is the source. That is where it says that the party ended. And they're like, technically, that doesn't say that the party ended. It just said it closed its only it closed its only place. Doesn't actually say that it ended, did it? It's like, if you have a business that has only one location and it closes down, that business is done. Like, the users on that page seemed very insistent that unless there was a formal declaration of the party dissolving, then that means the party is still around. And then I point out the fact that by that logic, Bull Moose Party is still around, the Democratic Republicans are still around, the Federalists are still around, etc., etc. When they bring up the fact that, no, that's not true, because those parties had a slow burn into irrelevancy, it's like, that's literally what the fuck happened with the Socialist Labour Party. They wouldn't listen to me because there isn't a formal declaration. I think one of them even cited the fact that there was like this fucking like LARPer who like has a Socialist Labour Party Twitter account, and it's like, see, the party's still around, they have a Twitter account. It's like, you fucking idiot, you fucking absolute moron. Like, you honestly think the party of fucking octogenarians, people who were octogenarians in 2008, you really think that those fucking people started a fucking Twitter account? Are you crazy? And the only compromise I could get was that, oh, the party went dormant since 2008. And it's like, the page is still like has that false information on it. I think they removed my fucking like dormant thing just because like, this is stupid. It's like, yeah, because I'm not in the crowd, so I can't like edit the page, even though like I'm right and they're wrong. But that doesn't negate the information that's there. Like, I mean, technically, if you read the page, it still technically leads you to the same conclusion that the party is defunct. The page literally ends with the party closing its national offices in 2008. So, like, yes, even though it doesn't say like the party is officially dissolved, it still effectively says that the party is dissolved. JJ also has this weird viewpoint in Wikipedia's writing, shitting really hard on the neutral point of view outlook, because they prioritize information as opposed to, I don't really know, what he thinks they should prioritize. Like, he claims, oh, they prioritize information or fun facts over readability. I read Wikipedia articles all the time, and I have a perfectly fine time reading them. If you can't read a Wikipedia article, that's a you problem. I'm sorry, dude. I mean, I'm sorry. Is this real? Is this an actual criticism? Like, is he actually complaining like that he can't read a Wikipedia article, right? Now, I mean, I get to an extent like what he might mean. I have a fucking capital in my like desk drawer, and I haven't really read that because it's like a little too complex for me. But it's like, I mean, Wikipedia seems to be fine. It's like smartness condensed down to the ability to be read by an average Joe Schmo like me. It doesn't really seem like that differently worded than a textbook on the same subject. The only example that he cited about a potential bias in regards to how it's written is when he tried to look up information on Monopoly to do research on a video on toys, because at the time, the Wikipedia blurb on Charles Darrow had really harsh words for him and the Parker Bros for, quote, stealing Monopoly from Lizzie McGee, and that it was in fact, quote, more nuanced than the blurb insinuated, according to JJ. And before I did that, I did some looking, and yeah, there was a version of the article that used harsher words, but it has been remedied. That's the thing that Wikipedia does. It constantly edit and remedy some mistakes that they might have. But also, JJ's just completely wrong. In the most literal sense, just flat out wrong. I decided that for the sake of this video, I would watch the Monopoly section of his toy video just to see what he actually says about the Lizzie McGuire and Monopoly situation, then compare it with research that you can do on the Lizzie McGuire and Monopoly situation, and JJ just completely removes all culpability from Darrow and the Parkers brothers for stealing Lizzie McGee's idea. Like, I mean, he just completely just like, yeah, it's fine that they stole her idea and then paid her like a small amount of money. It's fine, dude. Like, I mean, he doesn't acknowledge the fact that Lizzie McGuire submitted the Landlord's Game to the Parkers brothers in 1910, and then they denied her the game, and then they waited until after her patent expired, and then Darrow played the Landlord's Game at a friend's house, told him, hey, give me all the rules to this specific game, and he gave him the rules, and then took that, copied them, made a completely new game with the exact same rules and with the exact same premise, then took it to the Parkers brothers, who then approved the game, and then he sold that game to them for millions of dollars, and then, due to the fact that he plagiarized it from Liz McGuire, they had to give her the smallest settlement ever in order to, like, get that. Like, this seems like really black and white, honestly. The story is really black and white. I don't understand where's the nuance that JJ is referring to. But back to the, like way that the articles are worded, he even goes so far as to claim that the quote-unquote comprehensiveness of Wikipedia isn't actually comprehensiveness. And that is, in fact, bloat. And it's not actual information that is relevant to the article. And they actually are, like... basically, he says, like, the pages use fun facts and tidbits that anybody could just say, oh, this is somewhat related to the article, let's put it here. And then that makes it so that the page is unreadable. First of all, again, I can read Wikipedia articles just fine, but if he can't, that's kind of on him. But I don't really, like, believe this because JJ has a really fucking weird viewpoint on what is considered relevant information for the Wikipedia page. Like, he cites 2 Wikipedia pages as reasons why he doesn't believe that they have it right. The first one he cites is the Mario Wikipedia page. This is the section that he particularly gets mad at. Super Mario Sunshine was the first Nintendo game with Satoru Iwata as the CEO of Nintendo, who succeeded Hiroshi Yamauchi. The game's original concept did not feature Mario, as the developers feel that the role was too out of the ordinary for such a character. Later on, then when they used a generic man for the role instead, they believed having a realistic person alongside a character like Mario would cause incongruity and was ultimately changed to Mario instead. Mario's ally Flood was one of 10 options, but was chosen because it fit the game's theme, although it was not their favorite option in looks. Oh no! That paragraph was completely relevant to the page. Like, what? What's the problem? What's the problem? I genuinely do not understand what's the problem of this article. Like, Super Mario Sunshine was the first Mario game of this particular generation, was the first Mario game that was being developed with Satoru Iwata as president. I mean, the only thing I could really even say is, like, maybe, like, remove certain sections, like, maybe if Yamauchi's meant, like, because in the video where he shows this, he shows, like, certain, like colored text, which indicates that there's a link to text. So since his Yamauchi coloring here isn't, like, colored, then that means that he was mentioned in the page previously. Like, they don't have to mention him again here, so maybe they could just cut it out like that part. Maybe shorten the part where it mentions, like, how Mario wasn't the original plan and that they were going to use a generic person instead. Like, maybe you could shorten that section a little bit, but, like, I mean, the section is completely relevant. But then came his fucking, like, this one makes no fucking sense to me. In the most literal sense, this makes no fucking sense to me. JJ got really, really mad at a particular section in the Stephen Harper Wikipedia page. The section in question was regarding Harper's stance on economics. Here's it in full. During Harper's tenure, Canada had budgetary surpluses in 2006 and 2007 of 13.8 and 9.6 billion respectively. Following the 2008 financial crisis, Canada ran deficits from 2008 to 2013. The deficit was 55.6 billion in 2009 and was graduated lower to 5.2 billion in 2013. In 2014, the federal budget was balanced with a surplus of 1.9 million. For the first 11 months of the 2015-2016 period, the federal government was on track to a 7.5 billion surplus. For 2015-2016, the federal government projected a 1.4 billion surplus. Following the 2015 federal election and a change in government, the 2015 fiscal year ended in a 1 billion deficit instead. In 2010, Canada had the lowest debt-to-GPT ratio in the G7 economies. The Economist magazine states that Canada had come out of the recession stronger than any other rich country in the G7. In 2013, Canada came out with Global Markets Action Plan to generate employment opportunities for Canadians. He even makes a joke like, oh, see if you make sense out of that page. It's like, yeah, it's detailed information about how the Canadian budget and deficits were. Like, how is this confusing? This isn't confusing at all to me. It provides a bunch of useful information that would greatly be beneficial for people to know. But JJ just doesn't like that. He really seems confused. Like, why is this relevant to Stephen Harper? It's like, it's a section detailing how the Canadian economy did under Stephen Harper. How is this not relevant? But it gets even better. JJ even made a point that he felt that this section was so bad that he would rewrite the section and would say, this is his improved section. Though Stephen Harper's 9 years in office saw a mixture of budget deficits and surpluses, he was generally praised for his management of the Canadians' finance, particularly during the Great Recession. So yeah, literally just take out all the information and then just make a editorialized blurb that just sucks Stephen Harper off. Like, great job, JJ. Just amazing. Like an angel's kiss. Just like perfect. And it's funny because like that previous blurb that I said had a lot of blue texts and a lot of citations, like a lot of footnotes. This one only has one blue text and it's the Great Recession. So it's like literally takes out all the information. Like, and that's another thing that's just weird. It's just like literally during the Mario one, he's like, what is Super Mario Sunshine? It's like, well, first of all, I think the audience, the person who's reading the page is fucking stupid. So I think you can assume that it's a Mario game. It's a page about a video game character. So I'm going to assume when they say like Super Mario blank, especially considering at that point in the page, you've read a couple of things that say Super Mario World, Super Mario Bros, Super Mario blah, blah, blah. You could probably piece together that, maybe Super Mario Sunshine is a video game of some kind. Especially considering the next sentence says it's the first Nintendo game that was made under Satoru Iwata. Wow, what a concept. He seems to not understand the concept of Wikipedia having more than one page on a subject. Because it's like, is literally just like so confusing. I don't understand. This just seems like old man doesn't understand websites, literally. Hey JJ, there's this wonderful thing that can help you understand what Super Mario Sunshine is. It's called taking your mouse cursor, scrolling over to the blue text of Super Mario Sunshine and going, wow, it's a video game. Wow, what a concept. Wow, amazing. I mean, it's just so fucking weird. It's just so fucking weird. Like, the Harper page, I don't even think I really need to add anything to, like, make fun of it, because, like, that just seems, like, so blatant. It's just so blatant. Like, yeah, let's take away all of this information, and then just make an editorialized version that makes my favorite politician look better. Great. Seriously. Like, I mean, it's almost, does he even not understand the never mind. I was gonna make a point like, oh, maybe like he doesn't understand the concept that people don't necessarily agree that GDP growth is automatically better or worse economy, but like he won't care regardless. And he basically closes out the video by saying, yeah, Wikipedia stinks, and I've surely proven that by this point. It's like, no, you fucking haven't at all. You have not even remotely touched why Wikipedia is a bad source. You've just said Wikipedia is a bad source, and then hope people just go, Like, it's so weird. Conservatives make the argument, like, they just say things, and then they assume people already agree with them, and then they're confused. Wait, but you don't agree with me? What? So then he just starts saying, oh, here are places that you should go instead of Wikipedia. First, he says, read books. Don't read Wikipedia. Read books. But JJ, what if Wikipedia cites the books that you say to read? Shh, that's irrelevant. Shh, Wikipedia bad, baby boy, Wikipedia bad. But JJ, what if the books about this information are out of print? Shh, irrelevant. Shh. What if Wikipedia actually allows me to see information from out of print books? Yeah, because Wikipedia does that a lot. Like, they have a lot of books that are on file that are out of print, and they cite them in the book, like in the thing. And I would have never found out that information because I don't have access to books that are out of print. Like, I mean, I have a book that's out of print right now, and it costs literally like hundreds of dollars to get it. And I genuinely didn't think that it would be out of print. Like, I mean, some of the information in this book is on the Wikipedia page about it, but the problem is, it's like the book. Like, I mean, this information should be readily available for free for everybody. He says, like, literally, rather than read an in-depth Wikipedia article, you should listen to a podcast where an author will summarize their book to you, because that's better than Wikipedia. What? So you're the kind of guy that's like, yeah, you should, instead of watching a movie, you should have watched the Nostalgia Critic review of a movie, because that will give you the exact same outlook. Like, what? He says, rather than go to Wikipedia, what you should do is you should go to news publications like the New York Times, the Washington Post, the New Yorker, and the Atlantic, because they provide really good information and are basically like encyclopedias to an extent. They provide a lot of information, a lot of history, blah, 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 all this wonderful stuff, and a lot of this stuff is really great. And it's like, you know what, JJ? You're right. I would absolutely love to go to those websites to find and get access to the information that they have in store for us. Boy, I sure would love to do that. If only they loved showing information as much as they loved fucking money, because they would rather have it behind a paywall than have this information. I genuinely don't understand that. News publications are just like, here's this very important information. Oh yeah, by the way, you gotta pay for it though. Like, fucking like Washington Post, they're like, democracy dies in darkness. Saying like, oh yeah, our paper is like the reason why you should learn things. It's like, oh yeah, but like, it's not free. I can't go to the website and learn about this stuff because you hide it behind a paywall. So how do I get access to this site again? Like, I don't have money to spare on like 15 different fucking newspaper subscriptions. I'm glad you have the money for that, JJ, but I don't. I'm like hundreds of dollars in medical debt, JJ. And why should money be a barrier between you and information, JJ? Why? He says rather than use Wikipedia, you should use less concise websites like Britannica or History.com. Why not use them concurrently? I don't know. But like, yeah, genuinely, it's just like, it's like Britannica is an objectively less concise website, And it's like, why is that a more useful tool than Wikipedia? Again, why not use the two tools concurrently? I know this because I've used both of those tools concurrently. For a video that I plan on making later in the year about the American Labor Party, I had to use both Britannica and the Wikipedia article because the Wikipedia article mentions something, but the Britannica article goes way more in depth on that particular subsection of the information, which is good, genuinely good. But why do I have to then remove this bigger piece of information from my research because Wikipedia bad? Why is it bad? I made this whole video explaining why it's bad. It's like, but you didn't say why it's bad though. You just said words. You just said words. He says rather than use Wikipedia, we should use these smaller websites because they invite scrutiny by us knowing who they are. It's like, no, we don't know who they are. I don't know who Matthew White is. I know he's like some bald white guy that is a fake historian who works as a librarian. That's all I know about him. I don't know anything about his like actual credentials. I don't know about his political views. I don't know about the biases he has. I know nothing about him. He's knowing him is basically as irrelevant as knowing who I am. It's like, who cares? It doesn't really change anything about like the information that I espouse or the anything. It doesn't matter. But like, this is the thing that I genuinely find perplexing. It's like, because this I think truly is the crux of a lot of problems with this like Wikipedia hate that JJ has specifically. Because it's like, he hates Wikipedia and is working backwards to find reasons to hate Wikipedia. He doesn't have reasons to hate Wikipedia and then it concludes with him hating Wikipedia. He started out with the I hate Wikipedia and now he's working backwards to find the conclusion. Because one of the things that he said in the video at the end is like, all these sources are way better than Wikipedia because they're passion projects from people who do in-depth research on the subject, people who are passionate about these issues, like these issues are like amazing and blah blah blah, like all this stuff. It's like he says all this stuff, but it's like, how is any of that different from fucking Wikipedia articles and writers? Why do Wikipedia article writers magically not count as people who research topics in depth? Why do they not count as people who are passionate about things? Why do they magically not count? Why is the fact that they work on this specific website proof that they are bad? Why is that automatically the case? This isn't like a fucking neo-Nazi website. It's a fucking encyclopedia online. How is this literally any different? To use an example from me again, there's a page on Wikipedia that details all the members of the United States Congress who were socialists. Either espoused fully as socialists or were implied to be socialists, or like stuff like that. It was created by a user that you might be familiar with named Sucked on Left. And that page might sound familiar to an extent because I had made a video on that exact same subject prior. Now, before anybody rushes to any conclusions, no, Sucked on Left did not rip me off because when I found his page long after I had made my video on the subject, because like, this is the thing. This is proof. Like, I don't just use Wikipedia. Or like, I don't like just take Wikipedia like what, because like this page didn't exist. I tried to find a page like this to like see if I could at least find some sort of evidence for any of them. But like, no, I had to like go independently on a lot of these things. I had to like go through the Wikipedia articles for each of the individual people. I had to go through like all these individual sources for the pages to like see like, because some of them are like a bit more vague. But I had to go through a lot of stuff to find information for the video I was making on the subject. But then, it was after I made the video that I found out that this page existed. And then, since I went through all this other research, I then helped add the page because this was something that I was passionate about. And that I was able to provide reasons as to why these people also counted. Well, again, like, do I not count as someone who's passionate about the subject matter? Like, do I not count for just because I edited on the Wikipedia page? Like, why? Why does using or editing Wikipedia magically just not count as a person who's passionate? Like, all that is basically all that, like, regardless. I just want to take this brief moment to acknowledge, to just say this. Let's just take a look at Wikipedia. Wikipedia is one of the last websites that is not commercialized. There are no ads, no intentional biases. Any that they have, they try to combat by relying purely on information and wording articles as objectively as you can. Compare that to literally any other place you get information. Like my channel. My channel is not like 100% like purely free from biases. I try my best to I come to the conclusions that I do because I base my stuff on like research and logic and all that other stuff. But I mean there is still a bias there. I'm just one guy. If I had like 15 people who were working for this channel, then maybe there'd be less of a bias. JJ is heavily biased in his reporting and his stuff that he does, to the point where he's been accused of using his page to basically try and infiltrate like normal people's sphere and try to influence them secretly to be conservatives. And then there are a lot of historical channels that before they begin every single video, we want to take a brief moment to mention this sponsor of this video. They want to sell you a product, they want to push an agenda, etc. Wikipedia doesn't. Like, Wikipedia just wants to present information for everybody to view and everybody to learn from, and wants to make it so that that information is readily available to every single person on Earth who has the ability to reach the internet. Why the fuck would I be opposed to Wikipedia? In literally every single sense of my being, I would be the most I'm just the most pro-Wikipedia person you could think of. Like, I mean, I'm a socialist, I'm a leftist, I'm in favor of logic, data, and information being readily available to the public. Like, why would I not be pro-Wikipedia? I don't want any information to be hidden behind a paywall. I want all information to be readily available for everybody to view. Because that's the only way you can combat stupidity and false information and like misinformation. A free encyclopedia that can be accessed from your pocket at any point in the day is the most useful tool I can think of to make sure that we are a well-educated populace. So why would I be opposed to that? The only people who really oppose Wikipedia are people who are like literally autocratic dictators who want people to remain stupid. Like, I mean, genuinely, it just seems like the worst people are the ones who want Wikipedia gone, or people to not take Wikipedia seriously. So, as a brief conclusion, yes, I do believe Wikipedia is a reliable source, but we need to acknowledge some things about it. 1, Wikipedia should not be your only source. Look around other places, see if things line up. Check their sources, go to other sites that might expand the outlook, whatever. Like, as I said before, I not only used the American Labor Party Wikipedia page for my research on that, I looked at other sites, I looked at the other pages of individual figures to see if they had sources to back up other things. Like, I looked through a ton of things to see why, like to see if the information lined up. 2, if Wikipedia is the only place that you're going to look for your information, try not to use one Wikipedia article to use your viewpoint on an entire subject. Like, try not to use that. Try to use multiple pages. Like, for this episode alone, I used a ton of wiki pages to learn about a ton of things, plus watched other videos about the subject. But, like, for Wikipedia, I literally used Wikipedia's article, I used reliability of Wikipedia, list of Wikipedia controversies, vandalism on Wikipedia, Wikipedia Siegenthaler biography incident, criticism of Wikipedia, file flag of India.svg, Alaska, Henrik Batuta hoax, and a couple of other things I probably should mention, like, in the page. Like, I've mentioned them before. Like, if I've mentioned that I went on a page, yeah, I've been on that page for this video. If you come across a wiki page with misinformation on it, by all means, join the community and try to fix it. If you think pages lack good citations, find better ones and try to fix it. Especially if you think you're part of a perspective that is lacking on Wikipedia. I did, and I contribute to some pages to try and see if information is good. I contribute a lot to the Pink Tide page, I contribute to the Socialist in Congress page, the Socialist Labor Party page, etc. Like, it's a similar thing with, like, voting. It's a similar thing with, like, elections. Like, if you don't like your politicians, get involved and replace them. Like, I mean, get involved to fix things, or, again, just get involved, and if you think Wikipedia has a problem, then fix it. Please, be my guest. I want more, readily good information available on Wikipedia. Like, I want Wikipedia to get better. I want Wikipedia to have less misinformation on it. I would like for Wikipedia to like just be combed over, and we could just remove all the bad information and then just start over. Well, not start over, but like fix the misinformation so that we can have a good, clean, good thing. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say on the subject. And I will say I didn't want to make this video. I was when I put the poll on the video when I did my poll for this episode, I did want to do a different episode on the thing, but not gonna lie, I actually did have a lot of fun and a lot of good times making this episode, and I hopefully this video will be a good way to save Wikipedia's reputation. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and click the bell to notify when a future video comes out. And if you need more content from me, you can go on my website, follow me on Twitter, join my Discord, or consider supporting me on Patreon.